Good evening, everybody. A welcome to our public and a welcome to members. Planning Committee North December meeting. Just a quick bit of housekeeping. Fire exits are there and there. There's no drill planned for tonight, so if the alarm does go off, we'll exit calmly and make our way to the Carfax to the bandstand. Please remember your phones to silent or off. Members, please remember to turn off your mic before and on and off, before and after speaking. The one for the public just stays on until we're completed. And I'll ask the officer please to introduce themselves.
Good evening, Robert Hermitage, Principal Planning Officer in the Applications team.
Good evening, Emma Parks, Head of Development and Building Control. Good evening, Claire Brown, Principal Planning Solicitor.
Good evening, Melissa Stellar, Democratic Services Officer.
And Liz Fennick, Democratic Services Officer.
Thank you. Apologies, please.
Okay, we have apologies from Councillor Tony Feathers, Colette Blackburn, Councillor Chris Frank, Councillor Anthony Franklin, Councillor Cassia Greenwood, Councillor Warwick Hillwell, Councillor Liz Kitchen, Councillor Dame Mercer, Councillor David Skip, and Councillor Tricia Newton.
Thanks very much. Okay, minutes from the last meeting. Everybody hopefully has had an opportunity to just have a look through those. All agreed? Thank you. Declaration of members' interest, please. Councillor Fletcher.
I've got the words in front of me, declaring an interest in items 7, 8 and 9, having been a cabinet member responsible for those in those projects.
Thank you. Anybody else want to declare an interest? Great. Thanks very much.
Can I just confirm, so item 7 has been withdrawn,
Yeah.
which is drill hall. And just to confirm, and I know you would wanted to say, Ruth, that you would like to speak on the items, but you won't participate in the debate or vote. Is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification. I don't have any announcements, so we'll move to... Oh, sorry, no, we'll just the appeals. Anybody got anything they'd like to raise on the appeals? No. Well, we'll move then to item 6, DC 240048, Horsham YMCA Football Club. Presentation, please.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, members, just to update you briefly, paragraph 6.1 of the application report erroneously refers to the Rudrick Neighbourhood Plan, so please disregard that sentence. And just to update that, 18 letters of representation have been received and not 17. Unfortunately, this was excluded on the public register earlier on in the year. However, officers are satisfied that the objection has been addressed within the planning report, but just to give a brief summary of the objection. The objection highlights several concerns regarding the proposed use of 50 parking spaces. The primary issues raised include the unenforceable nature of the proposed parking restrictions and significant impact on local residents' amenity contrary to policy 33 of the Horsham District Planning Framework. The objector argues that the increased traffic and use of the site would compromise safety on the narrow, growing speed access road and exacerbate existing traffic hazards, particularly without a transport assessment. Additionally, the proposal conflicts with policy 5, which emphasises supporting local businesses within the town centre, where adequate parking options already exist. The objector also notes that past unauthorised commercial uses of the site and stresses the need for enforcement conditions to regulate it in the future. The application site is within Horsham's built-up area boundary. It's sited some 0.5 kilometres from the town centre and is accessible via Gordon's Mead, a residential road off the A281 Brighton Road. The YMCA Football Club features a 1,575 capacity ground, parking facilities, a clubhouse and a covered stand for 150 people. The area is primarily residential to the north, east and west, with fields to the south. Horsham Sports Club and Chesworth House are some 600 and 500 metres away respectively, and the site is bounded by mature trees. The application seeks to regularise the use of 50 parking spaces within the YMCA Football Club's main car park for private business parking on weekdays between the hours of 8 AM and 6 PM, excluding weekends and bank holidays. The 85-space hard-standing car park with an additional overflow area of 35 vehicles has been largely unused during the daytime, apart from occasional hall functions. Layout of the use is shown here. Since September 2023, the club has allowed local businesses to use the spaces to address a shortage of employee parking in the area. The site is equipped with security cameras and lighting with no structural changes to the application grounds itself. The photos on the screen here illustrate, just to the left there, the screening to the south, which is looking towards the outside of the built-up area boundary, and to the north there, which is the access out onto Gordon's Mead. The site is within the built-up area boundary, is close to a town centre location, and its use would continue to support the needs of a local business that lacks sufficient parking provisions, whilst relieving parking pressures on streets and local car parks. Furthermore, the use does not and would not hinder the existing use of the site or future parking needs of the site relating to the recent 3G pitch planning permission. In addition, officers are satisfied that the use of the car park for local businesses would not adversely impact on neighbouring communities over and above the existing lawful use of the site. Officers therefore recommend to the planning committee that the application is permitted, subject to the attachment of this condition, just shown here on the screen, which ensures the hours and days of use of the car park as per 7.1 of the committee report, which also seeks to limit the number of parking spaces proposed for this use. Thank you.
Great, thanks very much. We have two speakers, 2 minutes each, please. Please stick to time. Firstly, Andrew Watson.
Good evening, Chair and members of the committee. I'm a local resident of Gorings Mead. I'm also a chartered town planner with over 20 years of professional experience. I'm here today to object to this planning application. It's important to note that I raised no objection to the earlier application for the 3G pitch, as I understood its purpose. However, what is proposed here is fundamentally different. This application seeks to establish a commercial, town centre scale car park in a residential cul-de-sac. The Horsham District Local Plan includes clear policies directing uses such as this to the town centre. What is proposed is on a scale comparable to the Jubilee car park by the bowling alley and Den Road car park. I have concerns that the proposal was not considered properly against the relevant policies as I've set out in my written response to the application. Furthermore, there is no evidence of any viability reasons justifying this location. Unlike the football pitch, this is purely a commercial venture and is wholly inappropriate for this residential setting. As a chartered town planner, I would also point out that the proposed planning condition before you on the screen now to control the use is unenforceable and fails to meet the legal tests for planning permissions. This is because there is no way of ensuring the number of spaces being used is monitored and controlled, and whether they are actually being used by local businesses, as there is no definition of what constitutes a local business. Without effective enforcement, there is a real risk of uncontrolled impacts on local residents. I also acknowledge that members and officers may not share my professional view. However, I would like to draw your attention to the applicant's own public statements, in which they describe the proposal as a temporary measure as they awaited the outcome of the 3G pitch application. If the committee is minded to approve this application, I respectfully ask that it considers a condition limiting the permission to a temporary period in line with the applicant's own stated position. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. And Alan Maguire, please.
Good evening, I'm going to read from here, same for everybody else. I'm not so eloquent as the previous person, haven't found the applications. But my name is Alan Maguire, Secretary of Horsham YMCA Football Club, and it's in the Dean Ward. I'm here this evening to speak in favour of the application as part of our car park for commercial use. You will see from the application reference number that it's way back in January, and because of various government changes, it's only just come to the committee for recommendation. The Football Club has 110 car parking spaces, and with this application, we're seeking to allow 45% of designated local car parking. We have a further 60 spaces for community functions, which will cater blood donors, elections, swimming clubs, yoga. It's community based. There is limited public transport on certain parts of the day. Currently, employees need workers to return to their place of work after COVID-19. Various local companies on the east side of the town have approached the club for car parking spaces, where employees can safely and easily use during the hours of 8 till 6 p.m. Now, this will not be a pay-and-go car park, it's only limited to companies. Benefits: all employees can offer parking spaces by means of attracting new employees. Cars are not blocking the roads around the town. Employees go back to work and use the town facilities. Keeping cars away from the town centre car park. This will enable freedom for day turns and shops. The club has met with our neighbours, and the majority have not shown any objections to this proposal. For this reason, Horsham YMCA Football Club are in favour of the application.
Great, thanks, Alan. Any response?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just regarding to the objector's comments, so the previous application, DC 2257, did have a condition attached to it, condition 19, regarding the development being undertaken in accordance with the travel statement. 3.43 of that travel statement, it does state that the Commission would include the use of 15 spaces leased to local businesses. So effectively, this use has already taken place, albeit on an intensification of what's already been approved, and obviously that's up to councillors today to debate whether or not that's acceptable. The 2022 application also provided financial details, which demonstrates the need for the club to diversify their income, and obviously increasing the capacity would assist with the club's financial position as well. In terms of the condition on the screen now as well, just to remind members of the 6 tests of paragraph 55 of the National Planning Policy Framework. So the first test is whether it is necessary, second being if it's relevant to planning, third if it's relevant to the development to be permitted, fourth if it's enforceable, 5 if it's precise, and 6 if it's reasonable in all other respects. So on the first test, if it's necessary, I would say yes, because obviously we want to control the level of cars coming to and from the site. Is it relevant to planning? Yes, because if it's cars and trips and general use is relevant to planning. If it's relevant to the development to be permitted, I'd say yes. Our proposal involves the use of cars and the condition would control. If it's enforceable, yes, it would be, and we can take action and contact the applicant or agent in the event that there's a contravention to that condition. If it's precise, the condition is very concise, and we can talk about the wording of that if necessary. And if it's reasonable in all other respects, and I would say to that yes as well, because the condition is not asking too much. In terms of the condition and its wording, as raised by the objector, and obviously the definition of local businesses, it would be possible to potentially change the wording if members are agreeable to change the wording from parking to local businesses to parking to those users or those them not using facilities of the YMCA or the like. Thank you.
Cool, thanks very much. Okay, does anyone want to say? Oh, sorry, local member, sorry.
Before I start, could the officer just clarify a couple of points I didn't quite understand in his presentation? So one, you were talking about it's a retrospective application, so there's been use already, but are you actually saying that it's no intensification because there are 50 cars using it already, or are we anticipating the number of cars to go up? And the second thing, I didn't understand the last thing you said at all.
I think what my colleague was saying is there was recognition as part of the previous application that a level of parking for local businesses was taking place, but I think we acknowledged within that debate it didn't have permission. But I think what my colleague was saying, a level of that use was recognised in the transport statement last time. But that was 15 spaces, so we're looking at 50 here. So I think it's reasonable. Whilst we recognise that, ultimately we are proposing for 50 spaces, not 15, and that's what members need to consider. And I think in terms of the condition, obviously members can discuss that further, but I think if members were concerned by the wording, we could look at it in terms of, businesses could, non-users of facilities could use at that time, and outside of that time it would only be available for users of the facilities on site, because ultimately that's what we are seeking to control through that condition, is outside of those hours, the car park is solely able to be used by those people using the facilities on the site, and that's the purpose of the condition. So, we think it's okay, but obviously, if we wish to make that clearer, we can look at the exact wording of the condition. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll try and come back to that point towards the end. So it's on the face of it, it's a very straightforward application here, because it's regularising something that's been happening for some time, and it's supporting a local club which is doing good things for the community. It's providing parking in a place that is useful to have it. However, it is also a very narrow residential street, and what would normally be a very quiet residential street. The residents are very aware of the football club, their near neighbour. It does impinge on their life with the football matches and the other events that take place there. And negotiating your way in and out of Goringsmead is difficult. There's an issue of parking on Brighton Road itself, making it particularly difficult to get in and out, and there are issues with parking along Goringsmead on pavements and so on during events, which I have the greatest sympathy with residents about, and I think other members who sat here in previous planning committees have been aware of the attempts that have gone on to try to get further controls on that through the offices of West Sussex County Council without really any effect. So when we're considering this application, it's not as easy as it sounds, because as I say, the residents also do need to be considered. However, it does provide a service. It's supported by our local economy team. There is no objection whatsoever from the Highways Authority. The timings are designed so that the exits in the evening don't clash with the events that are happening later on. However, I do notice that West Sussex accept that there will be potentially more inconvenience to residents as the business users arrive and residents try to leave to go to work or school or whatever in the morning. And I think that's worth some consideration. I also noticed that although the application talks about this being a car park, in the conditions, it doesn't put any condition on it being cars that go there. And we know that there have previously been issues when, with bigger vehicles going down there with WeBuyAnyCar.com. So I was, having discussed the possibility of the officers, I would be minded at this stage to amend a condition to actually specify that this should be car parking rather than parking for larger vans and HGVs, because not only will they cause more trouble along the narrow road, which isn't really suitable for repeated movements like that, but those are vehicles that are likely to come and go during the day rather than just be parked in the morning and leave in the evening. So again, going back to the condition, if the current proposal is that this parking should be for businesses, with the idea that people would arrive in the morning and leave in the evening, if we remove the reference to local businesses, I'd be concerned that what you're going to develop into is an additional shoppers car park, perhaps, rather than a business car park, and that you would end up with a higher level of activity than we've actually considered in the application. So I'm not convinced about the argument to change that away from local businesses, because I think you could end up opening it up to more general parking than has actually been proposed. Lost my train of thought now. So I had one further point, which is the speaker spoke about the club having originally asked for temporary permission. And I'd like to ask the officers on their view as to whether it would be a reasonable thing for us to do to work on the basis of giving temporary permission, in particular because the intensification from permitting 50 spaces and its impact, particularly in the mornings when residents are trying to leave and businesses may be trying to arrive, is as yet untested. So I would be minded to, after hearing other people speak, but at the moment I would be minded to look to amend the condition to say that it should be for cars, it should be temporary, and the other thing I would say, no brains. Sorry, Emma.
I think you covered the other points, Councillor Fletcher, because you were talking about local businesses, but I think you were supportive of the wording
As it was originally, yes. So two potential amendments, but I'd like to listen to what other people think first.
Thank you. Perfectly fine to add car in there for clarity. In terms of a temporary consent, officers have assessed the impact and consider it's acceptable as is, and that's why you haven't got a proposal for a temporary consent, but members can consider that, and if you consider that's reasonable, and you have some concerns that you think a temporary consent might enable you to be able to reconsider that further, it's open to you to add that as an additional condition. Obviously, you should only do that if you've got genuinely concerns you feel are not addressed at the moment and you feel it would be acceptable for a temporary period to monitor that further. Obviously, in considering what length of a temporary consent, you just need to be mindful it needs to be long enough to actually draw a conclusion on, whether it's a suitable longer term solution or not for the site. So just be mindful of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Trott.
Thanks, Chair. Yes, I would like to echo most of my colleagues' comments, but just to put in 4 points. Generally speaking, supportive of the application, understanding the need for diversification of revenue generation, which is key. Just put that important facilities like this around the town are sustainable. There is an issue with parking in the town, as we're all aware, and this would, to some small degree, address that issue. The two points that I would have in the opposite direction would be, one, I think has been addressed, which is the cars issue rather than vehicles. I think that's quite important, because I think if you've got, even if you just say not HGVs, you're still in an issue whereby you've got 7.5 tonners going down there, low loaders, that kind of thing, which will create a real problem for the residents. And the and the other question, which I think is key, is your regulatory condition. How is that going to be enforceable? How could you possibly check that? That would be my other question. I'd be interested to hear what other members think. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. I was similarly, I guess, concerned if it was a short-stay car park and hundreds of cars coming and going and lots of traffic movements every day. But obviously I've read the report and it does sort of clearly say for private business parking, 50 car movements a day. I guess it's 100, isn't it? 50 in, 50 out. If they all come in the same hour between 8 and 9, it's still 1 a minute. So I have empathy with the residents, and I'm sure I'd probably complain if it was in my local road, but without objection from the Highways Authority, I can't see any planning grounds that we could turn this application down. So if the member wishes to move an amendment for temporary for 2 or 3 years, I may be supportive for that. I'm finding unclear planning grounds. 26% of cars this year are going to be electric. The noise from those cars are going to go down dramatically. The traffic movements in and out, obviously, is so concerned. But we've got the cricket club in the town centre that does a very similar thing. I'm assuming they are regulated and that they have permission of that. I guess it's irrelevant. We have to consider the application in front of us. I know the cricket club's been doing this for years with the parking spaces in the town centre. And the cricket field, the tiny little narrow road that leads up to there is a definite bottleneck for the size of car park, but it works. The cars come in the morning, people work in town and park in the car park and go again. I'd say that they rent their car spaces out to look at visitors, but the people only come into town 2 or 3 days a week sometimes, so whilst the visitors aren't paying for that space for 5 days a week, all the people work from home 1 or 2 days a week, and the level of car park that's being used, even though it's been paid for, is considerably less. So I empathise with the 17 objectives. I'm finding no plan ground to further that.
Thank you. Councillor Vickers.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I think everything's been said that needs to be said. I think there are some significant benefits from this application. Getting cars off Brighton Road and parking on the pavement in Gorringsmead would be a benefit, absolutely. I think I can support Councillor Fletcher's proposal to make sure it's clear that it's cars only and not any other vehicles, if that can be included as part of the condition. And I would also support a temporary permission, say for 3 years, in order to make sure there is no significant harm to the local residents. I can't see any reason to refuse the application, so I should be supporting it with those conditions if possible. Just for clarification though, enforcement of this is going to be tricky. Can the officers just clarify how that might be monitored? Because obviously cars coming and going, it's difficult to know whether they're using the building or whether they're using these parking spaces. So I just wonder how that would work. Thank you.
With any enforcement, we are reliant a lot of the time on the information for us or given to us, though obviously we can do our own investigations. If it was brought to our attention, it was considered there was an alleged breach, we would monitor that. We would ask the residents to do monitoring forms. We'd obviously see if there's an evidence base from the club in terms of what arrangements they have with local businesses. So if we had evidence, we can certainly serve a breach of condition notice. If we had that, it's within our powers to do so if there was an issue with a breach of that condition. Thank you.
For the clarification.
Can I ask, would we, is there any sort of opportunity for us to be provided with number plates as a monitoring mechanism?
I think that might bear on the side of kind of being too onerous. You could ask for, you know, what we've done in other occasions, not completely this situation, but you could ask the applicants to keep logbooks, which we can then view if, you know, if there was a particular concern, you know, then we could investigate and we would have a right to review those logbooks. So rather than, you wouldn't want every month them to submit registration numbers to us, but they could keep their own records of them and then they could be accessible to us if, sorry. Yeah. I'm not sure what you mean.
What I was suggesting to my colleague, Chair, was that possibly they issue permits so that they knew which were legitimate vehicles that were using the parking system.
Yeah, that sounds sensible, and that would be displayed. So cars without the permit being displayed would need to be, would be sort of a breach. The other thing that's sort of on my mind on this is the works that we're hoping are going to take place at the club, and whether or not that additional traffic is going to in any way, well, exacerbate this, and perhaps even whether there's any conflict with that works traffic that's going to be coming in. Obviously, we don't quite know where the works are at, but that's just a consideration I had about this. You know, there's going to be, presumably, when the pitch is being done up, there's going to be a fair bit of activity up and down that road. In terms of, so one might say, look, we need to, if we're going to put a temporary thing on this, maybe that's a time frame at least where we might look at it. You know, a month or 2 months after commencement of the upgrade to the pitch might be a good time to bring it back and have a listen to how it's going.
Oh, sorry, Chairman, I was just thinking about pondering over the permit proposal. I think the difficulty with that is, just thinking it through, is, you know, if you could say all local businesses, the car user shall display a permit, but then you're relying on a third party, that car owner, to display a permit. You can't, and if they don't display it, you can't, you're serving a breach of condition notice against the applicant for something that the car user doesn't do. I think that's, I think I would go back to the logbook suggestion more, because that's within the control of the applicant to do, rather than a permit that, you know, everybody knows what happens to a permit, it just slips down, sometimes you forget to put it on or whatever. And ultimately that's not within the gift of the applicant to control whether someone displays a permit on the car in the car park. So I just got some concerns about that proposal. I think there is a construction management plan, Chairman, on the previous permission. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, there is, but that didn't account for 50 cars coming up and down every day. Anyway, look, does anybody else want to say anything further on this? Councillor Minter.
Just very briefly on that last point, just thinking the logic of this. Surely business A will approach football club and say, I want to purchase 10 spaces for a year and provide the registration numbers of those 10 vehicles potentially on a register, and anything else that parks there that's beyond that can be enforced by us or the club, or a clamping. I don't think this is a complicated one.
I think that's fine, Councillor Minto. I think what we wouldn't want is continual supply of reg numbers being submitted to the council.
No,
I think if the applicants keep a record of that, which we can then inspect, if there was a concern about breach of planning control, then I think that would assist us in being able to enforce that condition, which is obviously some of the members' concerns.
Sorry, I wasn't suggesting the council enforce. I was suggesting that the club enforces. If anyone's there and shouldn't be there, then a civil clamping organisation can clamp because they're not authorised to be there. Seems quite a straightforward solution. And I just want to question, if we're going to suggest now temporary, that's not in the original application. So do we have to recommend a motion for that?
Yes, the member would have to put forward as an alternative motion to add that as a condition. And going back to your other point about the club enforcing it, they may well choose to do so, but that would fall outside of the planning system.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Councillor Ellis-Brown.
Thank you. I too raised concerns with the officers about the enforcement of this particular condition, but was reassured that it can be, as the officers explained. What I am troubled by is that we sat here some months back and we listened to an application to put a 3G pitch in that would increase the number of users and therefore increase the revenue that would be generated from the particular leisure facility. And now we come some months further on, we now want to have a car park that is going to be generating, I assume, revenue for the club. Well, I would have thought they should have waited until such time they demonstrated that their business model actually delivered the revenue that they said it would. Primarily because they're not the NCP leisure facility, not a car park facility. And so I'm troubled, and this brings more traffic into a very narrow street, who's going to have to deal with the additional traffic, like building the new 3T pitch, and 50 cars, 100 cars a day coming through that narrow area where the community, an impact on that local community. I'm not sure, was this, it's probably not material to the decision, but is this really necessary? But I would support what Councillor Fletcher has put forward to change the wording of the regulatory condition. But I am troubled by this, having thought back and looked at what was put before the committee before previously. I like there's 15 spaces, but it's gone up by over 300% now. So I am troubled by that and increasing traffic along what is a very narrow area. Impact on the local community as well, over and above what is already going to happen with the increase in usage for the 3G pitch.
Obviously, there is a section within the report regarding the cumulative impact with the Planning Commission 3G pitch at Parabol 6.4, that section there. So obviously we do need to consider it in combination with the permission that's already been granted and the impact of that. They may be better if you're waited or whatever, but ultimately we have to determine it. It's before us and we need to determine it. And obviously the officer's assessment is that cumulative impact is acceptable and so does the county highways. But members do need to be mindful of that in your decision making. Thank you.
Anybody else? No? I think we've said that bit. Councillor Fletcher.
So thank you everybody for your thoughts on that. People's concerns about enforcement is a fairly common thread here, and there is mention in the report about a car park management plan. I wonder whether it would be reasonable for the car park management plan to include the way that the football club is going to monitor and control the use of these spaces, which would then give us a basis for enforcement later on if that happens to be necessary. That way we don't need to agree here in this room on the fly as to how that should be done. But it could be done in a way that is agreed between the officers and the football club, so that we're sure it's practical for all parties. So I wanted to just ask whether that would be a sensible way forward.
Councillor Fletcher, yes, that is a condition that you can add to require a car park management plan to be submitted, which further details how the club will manage the use of the business spaces versus the other uses of the facility.
Thank you. Well, I'll suggest that I shall do that. And so the other outstanding point that we've got is about how long is temporary. And we've heard a number of suggestions until the YMCA 3G pitch happens, which I think is probably not a reasonable planning condition because we have no idea how long that will be and no control over whether it actually does happen or not. We've also heard 2 years and 3 years. I have to say that sounds like a very long time to me to try this out. So I was going to go back to the officers for their thoughts on what is a sensible minimum period to set a temporary permission for.
Ultimately, it's with you members, but my view is it certainly should be less than 12 months or and probably I would suggest 18 months because it takes a period of time to collate the necessary data to actually understand are there any complaints, what are the particular issues. So I think really anything less than 18 months is not going to give you that evidence base to be able to then, make a longer term, if they come in to extend that or come in for a permanent permission, you need to have a reasonable period of time that you can assess from. So, I think 2 years is reasonable, but if you consider that too long, I would suggest no less than 18 months. But ultimately, it's your decision, members.
Thank you very much. In that case, I'd like to propose an alternative amendment to approve the application. Firstly, I'd like it to be a temporary permission, and I suggest an 18-month period so that it can be assessed, and that would give adequate time to understand whether those issues that were raised by the West Sussex Highways as well as by the residents about congestion getting in and out were acceptable. It would also mean it wasn't overlapping with the appearance of the new 3G pitch at that point. I'd like it to include a condition that it's for cars only, and that there's a condition that the club should provide a car park management plan.
So just to clarify, Councillor Fletcher, the alternative motion is to approve planning permission. So it's an amendment to the condition as drafted. So it will say for private car parking only, so you add the car onto the condition as stated, to require a car park management plan which include how businesses will use the car park and how the applicants will manage that, and a condition saying it's a temporary permission for 18 months. That everybody's clear on what the motion is.
Sorry, just for clarification, can we ensure that the monitoring and management is included? Because in order to ensure compliance with that, we need to ensure that access to the appropriate monitoring as well as the management.
Councillor Fletcher is happy to agree to a management and monitoring plan, and certainly I think that's
Second. Councillor Vickers. Second. Everybody's clear? Okay, all those in favour? Those against? Any abstentions? Okay, thank you. The motion passed.
So that's 10 for, 2 against, no abstention.
Thank you. Okay, thanks guys. Now then, what we're going to do is, item 7 is withdrawn as has been, as has already been said. I thought what we might do for the next two, so 8 and 9, we'll get the presentations of both of those done together. And then we can, it's the same building, it's the same stuff, then we can just sort of chat around the two, and then we'll have the 2 votes at the end. That's okay, everybody mingle to that. Okay. Cool. Presentation, please.
Thank you, Chair. So this will be the Council's new home. The site is a 3-storey office building in the Swan Walk complex located on a corner plot location between Springfield Road and West Street in Horsham's built-up area and primary shopping area surrounded by retail, commercial and residential uses. This application seeks full planning permission for the installation of a new air handling unit on the roof and the replacement of the ground floor revolving doors with double entrance doors and sliding panels. The proposed air handling unit will replace the existing unserviceable unit and will be installed in the same southwestern rooftop location. Additionally, the revolving doors at the northwest corner will be replaced to improve access with a set of double doors. The layout of the proposed air handling unit on the roof is illustrated here. The red circle denoting new equipment, the black is what is existing. And here the floor plan illustrates the horizontal section through the ground floor, showing the existing revolving door on the left with the new sliding doors on the right, and the elevational treatment shown here. The proposed development is considered acceptable in principle and would not result in harm to the visual amenity and townscape of the character of the site and surrounding area. With regards to neighbouring amenity, following the Council's Environmental Health Officer consultation response, it was determined that the air handling unit could impact nearby residences, but with the addition of a silencer, the noise level at the paper yard is expected to be 40 decibels, which is below the daytime background noise level. The officer concluded this would not cause adverse noise impact, and has recommended that a condition be imposed to limit the sound level from the unit. With this condition, the proposal was not expected to harm the amenities of nearby neighbouring residents in accordance with relevant policies. These reasons, the proposed development is considered acceptable in accordance with relevant local and national policies. Officers therefore recommend the application is approved, subject to the attachment of a condition relating to materials to be installed as illustrated, in addition to a condition as suggested by the Environmental Health Officer relating to background sound levels of the proposed plant. And for the second application, which is the same site, the application seeks advertisement consent for the installation of 1 non-illuminated wall-mounted sign, 4 vinyl stickers and 2 flagpoles. The non-illuminated sign will be positioned approximately 5 metres above ground level on the northwestern elevation and will feature HTC logo and lettering. The vinyl stickers will be applied into the glazing on either side of the central atrium. The northeastern window displaying the HTC logo on a clear background, and the southwestern window featuring the HTC logo and lettering on the clear background. Flagpole will be positioned just below the 3rd floor balcony on the northeast and southwest elevations. This manifestation of the vinyls at the front is illustrated here. Please note that the red is indicative only, just to illustrate that the main logos would be white, because of course it would be difficult to display white lettering and logos on a white piece of paper. So that the red is showing where it will be clear, and the sections showing how the vinyls will be applied. To the side of the building, facing Springfield Road, the main council logo will be displayed at first floor level next to the existing windows. And finally, the visualization here, proposing the new exterior of the building. Proposed advertisements are considered to be of scale, size, design and position that would sit comfortably within the context of the site and surroundings area and would not result in adverse impact on pedestrian and highway safety in accordance with the relevant policies. Standard advertisement conditions are therefore suggested to be attached and officers recommend that the application is permitted accordingly. Thank you.
Excellent. No, we don't have any public speakers on this. I learned that the flags, by the way, are our twin towns, which I thought was quite cool. Okay, Councillor Fletcher, please.
Thank you. So as I said before, I've declared an interest in this as I was the holder of the Cabinet portfolio when this was brought to the Council. And I'm really pleased that the Council will be moving to its new premises, which will have significantly decreased heating and running costs. It gives us much more control over use of our buildings, being able to have the meetings that we need to have, a much better air conditioning system than we have at the moment, with more control over it. And overall, in time, the investment should be paying back so that it will be a financial benefit to the council overall. So I'm delighted that we're moving, but I want to note for the record that this application is does not affect whether or not we move. The move is going ahead anyway. This is a fairly minor application to do with the placement of the air handling unit, which although you can see it visibly in the elevations in the planning documents, is not going to be noticed from ground level where you're looking up at it from an angle, changing to the front door to make it more accessible and replace what is currently a broken door, and in the case of the second application, to make the building visibly clear that it's a Horsham District Council building so that people can find it. I think it's a rather splendid lion that's going to be there on the window as a window sticker, and an extremely modest board around the other side. So overall, if this wasn't us, it would be a lot of this stuff would be too minor to actually be considering by the committee. So it maybe need to come into the conservation area, I don't know. But anyway, I think in itself it should be a relatively uncontroversial matter. So I shall leave you to deliberate.
Thanks, Councillor Fletcher. Right. Councillor Trott.
Yeah, as the other ward member, I think, or the other ward member present, should I say? Yeah, I can only support this. I think it'll be great, and it'll give us a real sense of identity within the entrance of the town. I think it's very good news. Thank you.
Cool. Does anybody else want to say anything?
Yeah, if I may, I'm delighted that we'll now have 2 flagpoles that will enable us to retain the jack and then whatever flag is relevant at the time, such as the Ukrainian flag, the blue ensign, the white ensign, whatever it is at the time we are.
Excellent. Thank you. I think we'll move to a couple of votes then, please. The first one, item 8, DC 241611. All those in favour, please. Thank you very much. And DC 241612. All those in favour, please.
That's unanimous.
Thank you. Okay, it is now 18:24. Thank you very much, everybody. We are done.